Hi, today I'm sitting here with a whole bunch of books instead of a knitted item, but I thought we could go through this heavy pile here and see what kind of non-pattern knitting books I have and I like. I'm calling it 5+1 because the one isn't a knitting book at all. But you'll see soon why it fits in or why I've included it. These are all books that I've had for years. Well, the last one is a bit newer, but they are books that have stayed with me through numerous calls through my bookshelf. So yes, I do declutter some of my books. I live in a very small home. I just don't have the room to keep everything that I like. Let's start with the kind of obvious category, which I have two examples of. So that's knitting stitch Bibles, knitting pattern Bibles. And as I've had these for years, some of them might be a bit older. The idea of this video is more to give you an idea of what kind of knitting books are out there that aren't pattern books and that you might find useful or inspiring. Now this one is called 400 Knitting Stitches and it's put out by Pottercraft. This is sort of, so these are kind of but more basic, simple patterns. Like you can see on the cover as well. And as you can see, I've also marked this. There are several bookmarks and just sort of post-its, ripped up post-its, marking things that I've found inspiring. So if I have a design idea and I know I want to use a sort of something, but I don't have a clear idea what, I browse through my knitting Bibles, the stitch Bibles, and just kind of be inspired by them. Sometimes it might be that specific pattern that I see in the book that I end up using. Often it's just, it gives me an idea, I swatch and I come up with what I want to use. So this is good for that. And then the next one is different. It's Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible, and as the title says, it has 260 exquisite patterns, and they're by Hitomi Shida. And these are more intricate, more detailed. Again, the cover gives you an idea as well if you compare them. Basic, intricate would be the categories I would put them in. Now, my patterns very rarely have anything this intricate or complex. I prefer more meditative, but this is really, I browse through this often as well. It gives me an idea of how much you can do with knitting, and if there's something that really fits what I'm designing, kind of mood-wise, texture-wise, I try to find a way to make it meditatively, sort of tone it down a bit and make it the repeat smaller, for example, or something like that. So this is kind of what I use to get inspired. Then the next category, this is a Finnish book, so I'm not sure if they have it even in English, but this is a sort of like a historical knitting book. It does have patterns in it, but they are inspired by items knitted and knit and crochet items found in museums, and either recreating them or being inspired by them. And it has a lot of like history in it as well, about knitting and their fibre crafts. And I just find it really inspiring. Again, as you can see from the cover, this doesn't really match what I design, so I don't do color work. I've got a few color work patterns, but that's not my main thing. But the point here is that it doesn't need to be. This is again for inspiration and sort of getting the creative juices flowing and opening or sort of broadening the horizon of what is possible with those 2 needles or 1 hook and a string of yarn. It kind of blows my mind whenever I see historical books from any area of the world and learn more about that how different sort of end results can be had from the same basic ingredients. Now the history and the traditions that this book centers on is Finnish and sort of Nordic knitting and crochet history. If there are any good books from the area where you live, I'd love to check that out as well, so let me know in the comments. So that's something that is just kind of purely inspiration. I don't take bits and pieces from it for my designs, but it inspires me. Now the next one has a title that's very descriptive. It's the Fleece and Fiber Stores book. This one has more than 200 fibers from animal to spun yarn, and this basically gives you, for example here, Bluefest Leicester. It tells you about the sheep breed, it tells you where it kind of lives, how it came about, and then it has examples of yarn made from it and lists the qualities. Let me just turn the page. It lists the qualities of the yarn. It has facts about the fiber. So this is a very, very comprehensive book on the different fiber types, and I got this when I was in that phase of my sort of knitting and design career, where I wanted to learn as much as I could about the different fibers. Now I haven't read this cover to cover, but it's like a database. If I need to find out what different fiber qualities are, then I go in here and search for that fiber that I'm looking at or for that quality that I need. And again, this is like facts that you can live without. You can knit very many things without knowing this, but knowing this, or at least some of this, I don't know everything that's in here, of course, but knowing about the different fiber types does increase, like I talked about in my how to substitute yarns video, it kind of opens up the possibilities. You like a sweater, but you want to knit it in this yarn. Does it work or not? That's good, but I want it more drapey. Which kind of fiber should I substitute with? That kind of things. Or I've got this gorgeous yarn that I got as a gift, and what it is like to knit from it. Of course, you can just swatch it and see, but you can also learn about the different fiber types and what they're good for and what they're not suited for. So that is, again, something that's very interesting if you're kind of detail oriented or just want to have a peek into the sort of pre-knitting bit of this industry. Like you buy these skeins of yarn and they have different fiber combos, and someone has done kind of the legwork on that and figured out that these work perfectly together, so complementing each other and creating this specific kind of fiber that works well for sweaters, for example. So that's again just very interesting to know, and kind of, I don't know what the word is, but it kind of warms my heart that there's so much to learn about every little aspect that goes on to knitting. Now the next one is something I don't need anymore, but I keep around because I like to recommend it to people, and I've loaned it out to different people at different times. It's the Beginner's Guide to Writing Knitting Patterns by Kate Atherley, and it's a very good beginner's tool. So if you're wanting to start writing your own knitting patterns, this is a good source on just kind of seeing what you need to know and what you need to do that. It's also maybe interesting to browse through, even if you are someone who knits from patterns, to see the work that goes on behind that, and also just kind of learn the anatomy of knitting patterns. Yes, this is something, this is again an older book, but it hasn't really changed. Of course, there's not just one way of writing knitting patterns, but this is a good source if you're just starting out. And then the bonus section is kind of art books. And my favorite and my most recent purchase, I actually don't have many art books, side note. I go to these museums and exhibitions and I'm really inspired by them, and I very rarely buy the books. But this is Kustaa Saksi, and it's his Cosmos collection. Now, Kustaa Saksi is someone who creates these very intricate woven designs. Checkered weaving is his area of expertise, and they're really intricate. So I went to this exhibition of his art. They're really giant. And I looked at all of these pieces of art and I was just mesmerized by them. I think I spent several hours in there. I looked at every piece from every angle, looked at them from afar, looked at the details, and I just found it so inspiring. So art books in general as a genre, even if it's not your area of art, like the previous ones have been about knitting and they're about inspiring knitting, and history books and knitted art books, of course, but all kinds of arts are a good source for getting inspired, whether it's museums that you go and see them in person or whether you bring home the book. And this is something where I love this so much. I wanted to take a piece of it home, and I thought this one was good. So I browsed through this and I kind of go back to that collection that I saw in person. I'm inspired by the patterns and the colors, and sometimes I think it's kind of like commercials. I mean, you very rarely buy something knowing that you buy it because you saw the commercial for it or the advertisements for it. It's something that happens kind of subconsciously, and that's what the advertisers are aiming at. So I kind of think it's the same thing. If I keep looking at art, it kind of subconsciously influences my creative output. And as knitters, we are all creative people. So being inspired by whatever art it is that speaks to you is always a good idea. And so go out to museums, read or buy or loan from the library or get them from the library, just kind of coffee table arty books that just kind of touches something in you. I think it's never a bad idea. You never know how it influences you, and that's what I think this whole collection is. So let me just pick them all up again. So it's got concrete knowledge, history, detail oriented, and then kind of arty, just getting your creative juices flowing kind of inspiration. So that is, I think, kind of my knitwear designer, what do you call it, like the core library of my knitwear designer thing. I hope this gave you some ideas, and let me know your favorite creative books. If you've got like history books from your area that you would recommend. I think I'm on the market for a new Stitch Bible as well. So if you could let me know what your favorite is in the comments below, I would love to hear that and check out if I can get them from somewhere. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon again.